Today I'm going to talk about how crazy it is to drive in Florida and the number one thing you can do to protect yourself and your family when driving. So let's get started. Welcome back. I'm Jim Curtis. I'm an injury lawyer here in the Sunshine State of Florida, and I help people recover physically and financially after an accident. Driving is probably the most dangerous activity we do, and for most of us, we do it every single day. And the statistics relating to driving and accidents are out of this world. Did you know that according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 1 out of every 3 drivers will be involved in an injury accident during their lifetime? Worse yet, as a motorist, you can expect to be involved in an accident once every 10 years. And for us Florida drivers, the numbers don't get any better. In fact, the state of Florida ranks 3rd for total number of car accidents, behind only California and Texas. So it's safe to say that if you live in the state of Florida, the chances of you getting into a car accident are pretty high. But hold on tight, because there's more. When you're in a car accident, your vehicle's going to get damaged, and if you're one of the unlucky 1 out of every 3 drivers that suffers an injury, you're going to incur medical bills and other losses. But who's going to pay for all this? Well, that's what insurance is for, if you're lucky. And I say if you're lucky because Florida currently ranks 1st in the nation for having the highest percentage of uninsured drivers, sitting at 26.7%. That's more than 1 out of every 4 drivers on the road that are uninsured. And when I say uninsured, I mean those drivers have no insurance whatsoever. It's like playing Russian roulette. And here's one more awful fact. Florida is also the only state in the country that doesn't require drivers to carry bodily injury insurance coverage, which is insurance that protects you in the event the other driver caused the accident and you were injured. So although almost 27% of Florida drivers are totally uninsured, that percentage is probably a lot higher when just looking at drivers without bodily injury insurance. Now, as an injury lawyer, the worst part about my job is when I have to tell a client that there's no insurance on the part of the other driver that will compensate them for their losses. What's even worse is when my client doesn't have the proper insurance to make up for this. Let me give you an example. A recent new client of mine was involved in a rear-end accident that totaled his car. Clearly wasn't his fault because he was rear-ended. So as a result of this crash, he lost his car, and to make matters worse, he also injured his neck pretty good, and he is now seeking treatment with a doctor for that injury. Come to find out that the other driver did not have insurance because their policy expired several weeks before the accident. That means that there is no property damage to cover the loss of his car, and there's no bodily injury coverage to cover him for his injuries. So I do the next best thing. I verify his insurance coverage. Although he has insurance, which is a good thing, he unfortunately didn't have the insurance coverage he needed to make up for what the other driver didn't have. So aside from his PIP coverage that will only pay a portion of his initial medical bills, he was out of luck with no insurance to recover from for his injury or for his car. Now, how can you prevent this from happening to you? Well, for starters, don't look to your car insurance as a place to save costs when doing your monthly budget. Although I fight with insurance companies every single day, car insurance is nothing to skimp on. In fact, what I'm recommending you do so you don't end up like my client is to actually spend a little bit more on your insurance. In Florida, the law requires you to maintain a minimum amount of insurance coverage, and I'm sure that's true in every state. Here in Florida, you're required to carry property damage coverage that will protect the other driver for their vehicle damage in the event you were to cause a crash, and you're required to carry PIP coverage. PIP is short for personal injury protection and is otherwise known as no-fault insurance. PIP covers you for some of your initial medical bills or lost wages, regardless of fault for the accident, hence the name no fault. But it won't cover you for everything. So to make sure you can make up for the insurance the other driver doesn't have, you need to purchase these 2 things. Number 1, you need collision coverage. Collision coverage will pay for the damage to your car regardless of fault. So if the other driver doesn't have property damage insurance, you can still get your car fixed with minimal out-of-pocket expenses as long as you have collision coverage. So unlike my client who chose not to have collision coverage, was hit by an uninsured driver, and now can't afford to get a new car, if you buy collision coverage, you'll have peace of mind that this won't happen to you. Collision coverage will also cover your car in the event you hit a tree or a telephone pole or have any other sort of accident that doesn't involve another car. Number 2, and this is the number one thing you can do to protect yourself and your family while driving, and that's to make sure you buy uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured motorist coverage is so important, especially here in Florida. If you buy it, it'll cover you for your injuries over and above PIP in the event you were injured due to the fault of an uninsured motorist. So if you're one of the unlucky ones and are hit by one of the 26.7% of uninsured drivers on the road, or you're hit by a driver who is insured but doesn't buy bodily injury insurance coverage, you can then turn to your own insurance company to make up for it, subject of course to your limits. It'll also apply to compensate you for your injuries in the event you're injured by someone who is underinsured, meaning they didn't carry a high enough limit of bodily injury insurance to compensate you for your injury. And more importantly, it'll also apply to your family members. To sum it all up, saving a few bucks on your monthly car insurance premium may end up actually costing you thousands of dollars and, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars depending on your injury. So you have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Well, coming from someone who unfortunately has had to have this conversation with many people who chose to roll the dice, I can tell you for certain that it's not. If you liked this video and found it helpful, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos for even more great tips and information.